Hello, good morning, and welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. My name is Paul Strangini. And it is a beautiful morning. We were, of course, in Matthew chapter 8, and we gotten through the leper, and then we had the centurion, and then we had Peter's mother, and then he had multitudes of people coming to him, and he was healing them. And now in verse 18 he says, or it says, "Now when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave commandment to depart to the other side. And a certain scribe came and said unto him, Master, I will follow thee whithersoever thou goest. And Jesus said unto him, The foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head." Let's all look at this, because this is normally something I would just right over. So he sees these multitudes, and he gives a commandment to depart to the other side. And I don't know, is that entirely obvious why that should be? You know, the multitudes are here. Well, let's keep preaching them. Let's keep healing them. Let's keep ministering to the multitudes. Let's gather the multitudes together. Let's organize the multitude. But the multitude is running cross purposes to his purpose. Like, they're there, but this is not somehow, this isn't what he wants. And when he gives this commandment, go to the other, what other side? Well, they're the other side of the sea there, the Sea of Galilee. And I don't think I even mentioned even really, but he dwells in the region about Capernaum, which I'm only drawing from context, I assume is near the Sea of Galilee. I've never even bothered to look at a map as far as that goes. I'm not a big, it's funny because I was always a big map guy when it came to history. When it came to the Bible, it never struck me as extremely important. But if you want to understand, you know, where they are, you need to look at a map. When he's going to the other side of the water, and for my purposes, really, it doesn't matter exactly where it is on the planet Earth. They're in the city by the water. You know, and water is a representation of, like, the unknown. Because, you know, I've often used it as an analogy for getting to know God. That you can, you know, study the Bible for many years, and really only be on the surface of the thing. Kind of like the way. Let me just build the analogy first. The studying or learning about God can be a lot like learning about the sea. You can spend a lot of time on the surface and have this feeling that you know what the sea is, and you know a lot about the sea. Like a sailor who's sailed for decades is very well acquainted with the sea in many, many ways. But of course, if he's never been under the surface, he's only, you know, like we have the proverbial saying, he's only scratched the surface. And it's something we understand. And that's why it says, "Oh, the depths of the knowledge and of the wisdom of the Lord, how are his ways past finding out." And the deep also represents, you know, the waters represent, I could say this, you know, people and multitudes and nations and tongues. They do in Revelation. But symbolically, they represent like this large unknown thing or this massive thing. It's the place where, say, you know, because you know, people will say waters represent this, they represent that. They represent different things depending on where you are. And even though there's a multitude present, you know, could that have something to do with the deep, you know, pass away from the multitude, pass over the waters? I don't know, I feel that feels cheap to me, because I do think symbolically, like, crossing over the waters is like crossing into the unknown. Crossing into something new. You know, and it's like The logical thing to do is to take this multitude, this power he's gained with people, and consolidate it. To take more time with them, to teach them more, to gather an army, to gather a whatever. And that's the temptation. I mean, you get a lot of people following you. You think, well, let's build something. Let's build something out of this. But instead, he says, no, let's go off across the water. And obviously, they're not going to have a ship that can carry multitudes. They're going to get in a small ship with him and his disciples, and they're going to sail away. And because if you think about it, when Satan is held in the bottomless pit, that's the pit of the abyss, the abyssal pit. And the water is a form of an abyss. It's like this deep, unfathomable, unplumbable depth. I mean, there's monsters lurking down there. Danger. Instead of going into the expected, he goes into the unexpected. Instead of going with the charted, he goes with the uncharted. Into the deep. And then a certain scribe, that means I believe, what does it mean, Paul? The reason I hesitate is because I've been in Bible studies of where they use other translations, and I think they translate this teachers of the law, but I'm not certain what that means. Grammatus, it's got the word grammar in there. A writer, a scribe, I think so. Or it could be, but the thing is, sometimes you call people certain things euphemistically. A scribe might refer to a teacher of the law. At least that's what my fuddled brain is thinking. Whatever. A certain scribe, someone who is a skilled, educated man. To be a scribe, certainly you have education. To know how to write in this society, most people didn't know how to write. They always talk about the disciples as being illiterate. Sometimes I feel like they think that means that they were stupid, like they wouldn't know how to use a scribe. So this epistle couldn't have been written by Peter. He was illiterate. Yeah, but he had friends that were literate. How do you think most writing got done? Most people were illiterate. If something needed to be written, you went and saw the scribe. A certain scribe said unto him, Master, I will follow thee wherever thou goest. And see, he's about to go off on a sea journey. And that's very significant that he would, at this moment, say, I'll go with you wherever you go, even into the depths of the sea. And this is a lake, but it's a big lake. It's not the kind of lake. It's kind of like where you can, they're about to get hit with a massive seeing the waves roaring incident. And so, a lot of bad things can happen out on that lake. Like, I was just listening to, I live in Illinois, and I grew up a lot closer to Lake Michigan than I am now, but people die out on that lake. So, someone recently, I heard a story of someone, they were out on the lake, and then they got caught out in a storm, and then there were two of them, and only one returned. I'll follow you anywhere. And Jesus said unto him, The foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man hath not where to lay his head. So the foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests. I always think of he had talked about the birds in the Sermon on the Mount. They don't take, they don't have to think about tomorrow. They don't worry about the future. They just are taken care of. They find what they need. They hunt about for it, and it's there. And he's saying, how much more shall your Father take care of you? But he's saying, for his part, as far as like, he doesn't, I'll follow you where you go. Well, where do you think I'm going? I don't have a place to go. I don't have a hole. I don't have a nest. The Son of Man has no place in this world. I think that's what it's sort of saying, that he has no place in this world. Ye are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. There's a sense in which the animals have a place in this world, but we don't have a place in this world. Especially if we are if we are seeking God's kingdom. It's not here. It's within us, but that doesn't give us any place to lay our heads, so to speak. That when you follow Jesus, you run the risk of being eternally out of place. In fact, that's one of the reasons it just makes me think of denominations. Because, like, you think about fox and birds, I can't help if, we haven't talked about everything, but when they talk about Herod, they refer to Herod as a fox. You tell that fox. And they refer to, I even remember our current president being referred to as having animal cunning and sly like a fox. And the birds are used in the parable of the sower to describe how the seeds sown along the path, the birds come and carry the seed away, and the bird there is a symbolic of Satan. And they're not, see, that shows you how symbols are not always the same. Of course, it can be literal. But I'm just saying, the things of this world have their place. It's interesting, I always think that how people will talk about nature and how humans are so bad for nature, when aren't we supposed to be part of nature? Aren't we supposed to be a product of nature, according to them? Then what is it that is so alien about us? What is it about us that is, destructive to nature and makes us feel like we don't have a place, like we're invaders? We're invading nature. We don't feel like we're part of nature. We always feel like the invader of nature. It's fascinating if you think about it. And so, the kingdom of God is in us, but it is not of the world. It is something of heaven that is to come to the world someday, so we believe. But in this life, as in Jesus' life, in his carnal existence, he knew that there was no place in the world for him. That he had, only thing he had to look for in the world was his death and resurrection, but his death for sure. As far as, like, that's his place, to die. And even then he could not stay there, because death could not keep him. He rose from the dead. And, if we want to follow Jesus, it's like we're going to lose our place in the world. If we truly follow him, there's going to be a degree, certainly, to which you're going to have trouble finding place. I've definitely, at least this speaks to my experience, as far as, like, experiences with church and stuff. Like, I can be part of a church, but I never feel like truly part of a church. I never feel like it's a place to lay my head. I never feel at home. I always feel like, on one hand, that I'm somehow having to adjust my words and be careful and about what I say. And why is that? Well, if I founded my own church, would it be any different? Maybe for me. It'd be different. I'd feel right at home. Everyone could keep silence around my errors. Everyone could keep silence when they say things that disagree with what I say. I'll take all my disciples and put them together into a church and build myself a den. Whereas the fox, I can lay my head and have my disciples all, my little puppies, all right there around me, and raise a little pack. And Jesus has his disciples with him, but but he isn't making a hole. He isn't making a nest. And I think that goes right back to what was happening with the multitudes. He's not going to build a little den out of these people. He's not going to build a little nest out of them. But he's going to go off into the place where danger is. Instead of retreating to safety of the multitude, he's going to go forth into danger. He's going to go into the unknown, to another place where, because you got to think, Jesus is traveling around in his ministry, and it might seem odd that when he's crucified that so few people stand by him. But you think about it, he's here, he's there. People follow him for a little while, but like only a very few people are truly, with him, like with a strong commitment. And in a sense, when the scribe says, "I will follow you wherever you go," he's sort of saying, "Do you even know what that means?" Because it's not going to mean a life of ease. Following me wherever I go does not mean, okay, well, let's start here and build something. It means going into the sea, going into the unknown, going into danger. And that danger is often, it's not always literal. It's metaphysical. It's sort of like, going into dangerous territory doctrinally, exploring new ideas that people might not be happy with you. Saying things that might make people uncomfortable. It makes you not at home, not welcome. 21, and another of his disciples said unto him, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. But Jesus said unto him, follow me, and let the dead bury their dead. There's another one. Again, so we have on one hand, like, there's no place. You want to follow me. Do you know what that means? It means you will not have a place to lay your head. Yes, literally. But I think also in a spiritual sense, that to truly follow Jesus, it's disruptive. And it will be disruptive not because we want to be disruptive just to be disruptive, like just to be contrary. We want to go in and just disrupt everything. But in order to not disrupt, you pay a price. And when that is, you don't find your home there. You'll never be at home entirely. Because to make your home there, you will disrupt things. Just like a bird building its nest. A bird builds its nest. There are places where I don't want birds building their nests in my order. I have an order set about. Like I have a building and there's a heater and I've got openings in it, and the birds come in and build their filthy nests, and they drop their droppings all over the place. It's disgusting and filthy. And I don't want that chaotic mess inside my orderly place. So just like with my barn last year, I went nuts trying to keep the birds out and keep them from nesting in my barn and then dropping their droppings all over what I'm trying to build. And when you build things like a church or something, you try to order it. And if you have if you go too big, it becomes like the Tower of Babel. That's why I'm against big churches. It becomes like the Tower of Babel. An event, like when you build things too big in this world, even if they're supposedly religious, what do you think happened to the Catholic Church, the original church? Why does it split up into the Catholic and the Greek Orthodox? Why do the Catholics split up into the various Protestant denominations and the Catholics? Because whenever someone is not content with what they are and trying to just become more and more universal in the world, and trying to bring everybody under that, into everybody thinking the same, everybody acting the same, everybody obeying the same set of rules arbitrarily, not so arbitrarily, but constructed, filtered through the minds of a few men, like they would for building. They want to build the world. They do want to build a worldwide society, but they want to crunch it down into we're all the same and we're all part of this thing. And it will result in Tower of Babel. People, and it's already begun. As far as like you look at America, the way people on different sides of the political spectrum can't even talk to each other. They talk right past each other. They can't hear each other. They just yell. There's no back and forth discussion of exchange of ideas. It is simply we are against you, you are against us. And it's as if they spoke totally different languages. It's just like the Tower of Babel. And so also, when people go to build, if I'm going to just got off track again, but I'm trying to build some orderly thing, like a unified church, right? I don't want things coming in there and messing with what I'm trying to establish. And so, I shut the birds out. I put up barriers to keep the birds away from what I'm building. And I've done that many times around my property, and that's what happened. That's why you're never totally welcome. You can't build a nest here because I have an order that's already established. You can't build your nest in my barn. You can't build your nest in my church. Or if you do, you better not leave your droppings around that violate my order. Or if I find your nest, I might just bust it up. That's how the world works. That's how churches often work. Go in and try to build yourself a nest and see what happens. Trying to nest yourself within their order. You have to either join and conform, or you have no place to lay your head. Even the foxes and birds, those are, in the stories, the birds are always, you know how birds are. They come along and they snatch things away and they fly off. And it's like they're kind of agents of change and thievery and all these kinds of things. And same thing with foxes. They're these sly, cunning tricksters. The tricksters have places, and so do the birds, which are the least needing of places. They have nests, even though they need no, they don't have little houses they need to go to, but they build nests for their little eggs. And he's saying, I don't have a place in this world, in this order. And then that's looking back to what he came down off the mountain. He went to the edge of society. He went outside. He went to the center. And now all the people have gathered to him, and he's saying, I have no place here. I got to go. And this other disciple, he wants to follow the Lord, but he says, I got to go bury my father. I got to go back and do the custom. You know what I mean? Because he doesn't mean like, oh, my dad's laying out, thrown out of his grave. His corpse is just laying around. I mean, it might mean that, I suppose. But he wants to go back and bury his father. I think that's a euphemism for, wait till my father dies, because he needs me right now. Or it could mean I need to go to his... I don't know if it means like, I just need to go to this funeral this afternoon, I'll be right back. It might even mean that, okay? But what it's saying is I have some custom to follow, I've got to bury my father. There's some obvious symbology there. Let me give it to you, because I've been thinking about these things. I've been studying more in symbology. Burying your father. It's, who is his father? Who's the father of the Jews? Who's all their father? Abraham. But then, what's a more immediate father? Well, it's like, obviously he's the most distant father, but then your father. In a sense, your father is also the world in which you grew up. The order under which you were raised. You know what I mean? Let me go first put to rest the traditions I've learned of the Pharisees. Let me first go bury these things. Let me go first finish up what I was learning with them. I don't know. Maybe that's not such a good interpretation. I thought I did a better job with that light. It's not too bad, but... So, let me first go bury my father. There's a sense in which, because Jesus is here, Jesus has come to raise the dead. And, like the customs of the Jews and all their teachings had become like a dead thing. They had been, like the letter kills, but the spirit makes alive. I was thinking about doing a study called The Spirit Kills, or When the Spirit Kills, but just flipping that on its head. And it's certainly, if you think about it, you can understand how that would be so. How the letter can make alive, and the spirit can kill, but falsely so. Anyways, the traditions of the Pharisees, the things he was saying. You've heard that it was said, "Thou shalt not kill." Right? And so people think, "Oh, thou shalt not kill," so we won't kill. But then they're filled with hatred and envy and strife and name calling and belittling people and being very, in a sense, breaking the spirit of that. And so that the traditional understanding of "thou shalt not kill," is like a dead tradition, because it's not helping them fulfill righteousness. Thou shalt not commit adultery. According to the Pharisees' teaching, it's this, that, the other. It's like, well, you can look, but you can't touch. So you can lust after a woman and be guiltless. What's the harm if you're just looking at somebody's wife or daughter, you're just lusting after them? As long as you don't act on your impulse and actually do it, as long as you don't harm someone else, do what thou wilt, but harm none. As long as that goes, then you're fine. You're righteous. And those traditions which they had handed down are like a father. And they're dead. And Jesus had come to take that which is dead and make it alive. So he takes the law, "Thou shalt not kill," and he brings it back to life with his teachings. But I say to you, and adultery, it's dead. Because it's dead as far as righteousness is concerned. It doesn't bring about righteousness, and he brings it back to life and says, "But I say to you." And again, the traditions of them, let me go bury my father. It's so important. Well, I am the Son of Man, the Son of God, and here I am to preach the gospel. Let the dead bury their dead. Let those who are of the traditions of the Pharisees, because funerals and burying and stuff is all very traditional type activity. There's other people who can take care of these things. For one, the Jews aren't just going to let some body rot. They're going to put it away. And I don't think that's even what he means. I think what he means is I don't think he means my father died yesterday and I got to go to a funeral. He would say, my father's died or something. Would you come heal him or whatever? That could mean that. But what he means is, my father is very old and I can't come follow you right now. So let me bury my father, which means like let me just wait till my father dies, and then I'll have the freedom to come follow you. And this is also kind of a problem in a sense of like the commandment of honor your father and your mother, because you're supposed to take care of your parents. But I don't know that it means like I have to take care of my father so much. It means is I have to wait till he's dead. I have to wait till my father's dead. And I think what Jesus is saying is they're all dead. And let them take care of each other. It's a question of not so much, I think, I have a dead body on my hands or my father is in need. It's just that I need to just stick around my father until he's gone. And he's saying until that's gone, let me hang on to the past, and then when that's gone, when that's truly dead, I'll follow you. My eyes always get so dry about a half hour into this. He says, let the dead bury their dead. What he's saying is that, that if you want to be alive, come follow me and you'll have life. and let people who are going to be in the world, because it's like I often say that this is, is it, well, should I just not take care of family funerals and stuff? But you understand, the Lord Jesus was walking the earth, and he's calling this person to follow him. So there's sort of like this imperative idea, like that this is a moment to take a hold of. I mean, here he is. He's been working miracles and stuff, and like, he's like, I'm excited. I'll come follow you. Can I do it after my dad dies? Well, it's such a mundane excuse. I just need to wait till my father's dead. Then I can follow the miraculous ministry of Jesus. And the Lord is saying, let the dead bury their dead. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I'm getting in this ship and going away. Wait till your dad dies? You're going to miss out. There's a time when you got to like seize the moment, when you just got to abandon everything. And then there are times when it's like, he that does not look after his family is denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Because there are times when we're called to action, and when we've got to go into the sea, to the call to adventure, and to go into the unknown, and perhaps come back with greater knowledge of God, or of mysteries, or to have slain the dragon, so to speak. You know what I mean? Or to bring back the fish, to bring back a net full of fishes. There's all kinds of reasons to go off into danger and away from the familiar. You know what I mean? Let me just stay with the familiar. Well, let the familiar bury the familiar. You need to, you know what I mean? Like, you can't stay in a place of safety all the time. Waiting for dad to die is a very safe thing to do. But Jesus is calling people out of that and to take risks. Come follow me in my ministry. Don't stay in your safe place. Don't just make a home in what's comfortable. Don't just be content with things the way they are. But don't be afraid to go out and take risks. Get in a ship. Metaphor. Getting in a ship is a dangerous undertaking. All my dreams when I have water involved are terrifying. I'm on water in a tiny little raft, and there's all kinds of big things underneath. I've had dreams that I'm jumping in the water, and all of a sudden I go poof down to the bottom to rescue someone down at the bottom of the water. Actually, that dream was a little more. Actually, what it was is I jumped into the water, and I dragged someone down with me, and then I was way down under the water in the darkness, and I was like, let's go back up, try to make it up. You ever swim up and have that feeling of like something chasing you from the deep? It's very frightening, because you're very much out of your element. You're in a very unknown, dangerous place. And even the surface of water is like that. If you like Line by Line Bible Studies with me, subscribe to Line by Line Bible Studies and click on the little bell so you can be notified whenever I'm streaming. Even though the schedule is Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. to about 8 p.m. Wouldn't that be something? A nice 13-hour study? No. 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. For more study songs and more, visit oraclesofgod.org. And I have another YouTube page. All this is linked in the description below, but for some reason I'm still putting that up. And if you have a question, it's also in the description below. You can send your questions to questions@oraclesofgod.org, or you can post it in the... Oh, there's... Ever heard of Jesus the... Oh, this is cool. I got some questions. Jesus the Jew does infanticide and will genocide mankind. Interesting. Hold on. Let me get back to study mode. Brainwashing. This sounds like an anti-religious sort of comment, actually. I think religion is brainwashing. What kind of brainwashing is going on here? Ever heard of Jesus the pregnant woman killer? No. I'm trying to think of like when he killed a pregnant woman. And then Jesus well, yeah, there's a bit of genocide, sure. It's when Jesus comes, it's gonna be rivers of blood. Because he kills his enemies. He just, he's gonna, though, because they come against him to fight him. If someone came against you to fight you and to kill you when you're about to take over, you kill them, of course. The whole world is full of genocide. It's a way of man. Yeah, so Christianity is a genocidal religion. Because he's going to, there's like, you look in the book of Revelation, it's like, there's, there's these 4 angels that are prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year to slay the third part of men. And they're there to kill a third of the population of the world. And you understand that God thinks nothing of killing everybody. That's the story of the flood. And it's because, look at, if we want to give ourselves over to evil only continually, we will certainly all be killed. That's the story of the flood, and there are very few of us left. Like if our whole society just gives itself over to only evil continually, and our thoughts are continually evil, we will degenerate into fighting, and pretty soon we will all be dead. The flood can take the form of a flood of waters or of a nuclear holocaust, of a nuclear winter. How many human beings do you think will be left? So I guess this person probably isn't still there. Probably it looks like a drive-by comment. But thanks for the comment. I don't know, the pregnant woman. Oh, yeah, sure, the pregnant woman killer. Because of, like, Noah's flood, sure. I always think they think that's somehow going to throw me off. Like, do you know that there were a lot of pregnant women killed in the flood? Did you ever hear of a right? Did anyone has a right to life? And the pro-life people think there's a right to life. And I'm pro-life, actually. Right? But, I don't really believe in a right to life. I just think it's wrong to kill. Human beings have no right to live, not even a moment. Life itself is a gift. It is not something we deserve. You know what I mean? Like, you think about it, when the egg is attacked by the sperm, there are millions of sperm. That means there's millions of possible human beings that come into being. Is any one of them of more intrinsic value than the other? Yet only one comes to life. So, yeah, I've heard of Jesus, the pregnant woman killer. So what? It's like, God kills everybody. Ooh, pregnant women killer. That's all human empathizing with human. We look at, a pregnant woman being killed. How wrong. It's wrong of us to do it. We know it's wrong. Why is it wrong for God to kill us all, every last one? Why is that wrong? That's wrong? What's wrong about it? Tell me what's wrong about it when you come by and do your drive-by comments. Well, because really, it's like, does God have some obligation to bring us to life? I've covered this all in a study on my webpage, oraclesofgod.org. I've got a study called The Creator and the Uncreated. And it kind of goes into this subject. This is a typical kind of poor argumentation. I wish he'd known I would have answered his remarks eventually, but he didn't want to sit around. It was just a drive-by thing meant to throw us off. Little does he know what kind of brainwashing going on here. The worst sort of all, right? Yes. Good. I hope they come back. Bring your friends. Tell though actually that can happen to the chat. That's why Katie has power to censor. But don't censor, please, until I give you leave, until it gets out of control. I don't want to censor that crap, honestly. I think those are really good questions worth answering. Maybe I'll do a special on that, because it's maybe I'll call it what do you call it? Jesus, the pregnant woman killer. Jesus, the Jew, does infanticide and will genocide mankind. Yes, I will do. Maybe I'll do a special call that. I'll call it that. Thank you, Doctrine Enforcer. Anyways, so much for that distraction. But that was really amusing. It's fun to have a comment from a new friend. Anyways, when he was entered into the ship, his disciples followed him, and behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch as that the ship was covered with the waves. But he was asleep. So they went into the sea, to the unknown. See, I'm going to make more of this than just the text, because it's like, otherwise it's just boring. But I think there is symbolic meaning, because like anything he did, you really think it didn't have some sort of significance. You know, it's got to have some sort of significance. I don't want to read too much into it, I suppose, but I don't see any harm as long as it's in line with what else is taught. As long as I don't get off into weird things that are contrary to the teaching or alien to the storytelling. So he enters into the ship, and his disciples followed him. So his true disciples go with him into the ship. And behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with the waves. So, you know, now the waves of the water, you know, in the ship you're supposed to be kind of safe. I mean, that's the idea, is to keep you safe from the elements. I mean, you can't just swim across the Sea of Galilee. I mean, I'm sure some people can. But it can be very dangerous. It can be treacherous. And if you're not a professional swimmer, I mean, I wouldn't dare to swim across it. What if I get exhausted? The ship was covered with waves, but he was asleep. And you could say, well, I could kind of just float my way across and just kind of maybe do a little backstroke lazily. Well, assuming everything stays nice, right? As long as the sea cooperates, you might swim across, but you might take your boat across. But what if it doesn't cooperate? What if nature conspires against you and your little adventure to toss you? And that's the thing, when you go to the dangerous place, danger will confront you. You know, when you go out of the place of safety, you don't expect, you know, when you go off into the unknown, when you start intruding into things, you gotta be careful. If you intrude into that which your eye has not seen, you can find yourself in heresy. You can find yourself in false doctrine. And they all slumber. No, I'm sorry. He sleeps. He is sleeping. The Lord is asleep. He's resting quietly. So in the, you know, and of course, at the end of the Sermon on the Mount, he had said, talked about building your house on the rock or on the sand. And what happens? The rain descends. The floods come and they blow upon the house. It's too bad nobody told Doctrine Enforcer that if halfway through he would check the pop out. I'm sad he left. But the rains beat upon the house, right? The floods come. And floods and these storms are symbolic of, very obviously, of all the troubles that come at you in your journey through life. You have trouble. It's impossible, but the defenses will come. It's impossible, but the trouble is going to come. Suffering is going to come. Persecution is going to come. If you love righteousness, all kinds of things are going to come against your righteous walk to destroy you and to knock you off your ship and plumb you into the depths and to swallow you up. You know, life is a journey into the unknown. Unless you just, you know, stick with the safe, stick with Dad. You know, just live your life entirely, you know, till the day your father dies. Just wait for him to die without ever going off on your own into the unknown to truly live. You know, that's the thing, is like, if you only stay where it's safe, you know what I mean? And I mean this in every sense, metaphorically, physically, you know, like there's so much like, let's keep our children safe. You know, let's not let them do any physical contact sports. Though, you know, I think some are, you know, my kids don't play football mostly because it's not practical with 7 sons to put them all on football teams, and they can't even play high school sports. So we do wrestling because you can do that on your own outside of a school also. But, you know, some people don't like that, and it's somewhat dangerous, and you feel a little frightened for your kids' safety and stuff when they go out and they start throwing each other around and grabbing each other by the head and doing dangerous things. You know, getting in a fight, essentially. With rules, but in a fight. Physically dangerous. Mentally dangerous. Like, let's not have them exposed to any contrary ideas. You know, like, we don't want them exposed. You know, I felt this impulse. I don't know if I want them to see this evolution stuff. Why not? They need to see it, because they need to, we should not be afraid of the unknown, because we need to trust. That's the message here. The unknown is going to come against us. It's going to seem to swallow us up. I mean, I felt this when I looked into books that challenged my faith. I remember I felt this like overwhelming, like, whoa, the things they're saying are I haven't heard before. This is new. I'm going into dangerous territory. These people are claiming that these books are not, well attested, and this scripture and that, and I had all these preconceived ideas about the scripture. I was in a very safe space. I had my little home built in which everything made sense, and I created a little bubble around myself and the world that I understood was true. And then instead, I looked into dark things. The Bible isn't true. Looked into dark things. Jesus never lived, and all these dark things, and hearing them say all these troubling things, and it comes against you, and you feel them wash over your mind. And some people can just trust, and just, oh, well, it's fine. But it's like, it's not so easy. It's not just a question of trust. It's like, it's one thing when you're building your house, you got to build it on a rock. But if you're in a ship, the ship moves. You got to stay with the ship, because that's where the Lord is. He's in the ship. He's sleeping in the belly of the ship. It's a picture of like Jonah. Jonah was sleeping in the belly of the ship. And in Jonah's story, they had to throw him out and let the thing under the water devour him, so that the sea can be calm. And in a sense, Jesus had to be thrown to the thing that devoured him. He had to be crucified and rise from the dead, so that the things that would destroy us could be placated, I guess, could be appeased. And in this one, he's asleep, but he doesn't have to be thrown. But he comes up and he rebukes the sea and the waves. I didn't read that yet. And his disciples came and awoke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And he said unto them, why are you fearful, O ye of little faith? Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. So he arises, and instead of having to be, at this point at least, instead of having to be thrown out and swallowed up by the whale or swallowed up by the sea, thrown into the abyss, he is sleeping in the ship. And he rises and speaks the words which set everything calm again. He speaks the right thing. And so, turning that to the idea that, the ship is moving. He's in the ship. The sea and the waves are roaring. And the most dangerous thing is either the ship is going to capsize, you're going to be washed off the ship. And that can happen to people that get washed out of Christianity. They hear things like, our buddy said, I'm going to keep looking for you, Doctrine Enforcer. Jesus, the pregnant woman killer. Have you heard that in the flood, pregnant women died? Did you ever think of that? Like people hadn't thought of it. Of the horror. It's like, yeah, you know what? If you fill the world with evil, and you disregard the teachings of the scriptures and of Jesus, if you disregard what he teaches, you will fill the world with violence, and your pregnant women will be ripped up with hooks and with blades. They will be ripped up with gunfire, and your little ones will be dashed to pieces. That's what happens. Yeah, if you don't give heed to God, bad things happen. Oh, you have little faith. They jumped into the boat with him. They were ready to go with him, but then when he seemed to be, he wasn't conscious, and he didn't seem to be with them anymore. He was asleep, and trouble came, and they were afraid. We're dying. Help us. They knew who to look to. They knew where to look for help. But they were afraid. But I always like the one where Peter walks on the water, because I like that he was walking on the water and he doubted. They were in the boat with him. They were the ones who believed in him, and they doubted. And because as someone who has had many doubts throughout my walk, it hasn't been like just this easy thing for me to believe in Jesus. It's not terribly easy, because There's so many things in the world which will come against you to say, nah, you're going to die. You're not going to rise from the dead, you fool. Or as when I received the Holy Spirit, the moment it happened, right before it happened, I was like, you're going to stand here all day like an idiot. And nothing's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. You're going to stand here, these people are preying on you, and you're just going to stand here not knowing what to do with yourself. And the whole day is going to pass away, and you're going to be like, yeah, nothing's happening. Because I wasn't going to be like, okay, something happened. I guess my mic's a little hot. Okay, something happened. Oh, look at how I feel it. Ooh. Well, I can't cheapen myself like that. So he uses his word to rebuke the winds and the sea. There's many times in the Old Testament where it speaks of God rebuking the sea. He rebukes the wind. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water in Genesis 1. And this rebuking of the sea brings about great calm. He can speak the words which make the tempest calm and bring calm to the storms that come against us. He doesn't make the sea go away, but he makes the tempest and the things that make it so frightening. Because the deep is still there, and the potential for danger is still there. And it is really dangerous. But what the teaching is that the Lord Jesus can carry us through the danger. And we can, and whatever, and it's not just physical danger. Like I said, I've been trying to say, like, through faith, I've received gifts of God, power, and through faith, and through receiving that power, it gave me the faith to take on the dangerous things, the things that would destroy my faith, like the things that guy who made his comment, that have him just, he's absolutely, the monsters have swallowed him up. They killed babies. I can't handle it. You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the fearful monsters beneath the surface of everything. It's like there's death. All the babies die eventually. Didn't you notice? And if they die a bit sooner, I think it's funny. We have a society. We think nothing of babies being, they say that because they know we oppose killing babies in the womb. And it's like, but they don't understand, like, because I can't justify killing another human being. I can't justify it. That's certainly not another innocent human being. I didn't want to kill a guilty one. Mostly because I don't know how guilty they are, really. How do I know how guilty someone is? I mean, there are ways, right? I'm like, if you're a witness, someone breaks into your house and starts doing things, it's not an easy time to say, like, oh, I should turn the other cheek. But I can't justify ripping up a woman with child. I can't justify it. But God is entirely justified. He can justify it because he occupies the truly objective position. Naked you came into the world, and naked you go out. I brought you forth from nothing, and you go into nothing. What exactly is your complaint? You know what I mean? Like, oh, she had a right to be alive. Really? No, no one has a right to be alive. The only thing that's right is for us to not exist. That's right. It's the only right thing. But the men marveled, saying, what manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? Through God we have the power that even the troubling things can be brought under control. He can bring order to the most chaotic things of all, nature itself. He speaks order to nature. Just as we are alien things, and we bring, we don't have the fox when they build their holes. That's not exactly a form of order, but we build houses. Jesus is the cornerstone, and as a wise master builder, we build upon those things. He talks about building houses, not holes and nests. You make nests in someone else's order. Nests are made in nature as part of nature. Holes are dug in the earth as part of the earth. But the house of God is built as an alien structure, as bringing the natural world and the chaos into a place of order. That's why we build our house upon the rock and not upon the sand, because the sand moves. If you go into danger, you got to go in a boat. You can't go in a house out into danger, out into the places where the Leviathan dwells and the enemies of God are circling to destroy your faith. When you go into those places, you can't go in a house. You got to go in a ship, something movable, something that is not, it has the rock in it, but is not founded on anything. You're off exploring. You're trying to learn the truth. And when the evil comes against you, Jesus is there through the Holy Spirit to speak the truth and to show you and to bring calm to all that craziness. Like, listen to my study on fundamentalism. It's like, oh, it can't, they'll say, like, look at it, Noah's flood, all the animals and this and that. And it's like, oh, man, that's so troubling. It's like, I guess I'll just believe it anyways. No, you're believing what you thought anyways. You're not necessarily believing what is true. Listen to the truth, not to what your dogma tells you. Dogma is not the truth necessarily. It's just some dogma based on some arbitrary idea that, well, everything in the Bible needs to be interpreted literally. Let's see, we're only got 3 minutes. We're going to talk about this. Gee. How many verses did I get through? Like 9? That's the way it goes. But since we're studying every day, wow. Oh, let's just dive into it. I don't have time, but that way it'll be all the more familiar tomorrow. And it'll give me something to think about all day. Give you something to think about all day. What meaneth these things? 8:28. And when he was come to the other side, into the country of the Gergesenes, there met him 2 possessed with devils, coming out of the tombs, exceeding fierce, so that no man might pass that way. You see, they come from the waters, and now they come to the other side, to the country of some strange people, the Gergesenes. And they're not Jews because, as we're going to see, they herd swine. And there's these 2 guys living, 2 of them living in tombs. There's another story where it's the country of the Gadarenes and it's 1 in a tomb, but it doesn't matter. It's 2 in a tomb here. People get caught up and say, like, okay, how do we reconcile this? Is this a discrepancy? And it's 2 different accounts, 2 different stories. They might mean something very similar. It's really nothing. It's not troubling at all. It's only troubling when you try to force it into some sort of really concrete, like when you're just not listening to what it's saying. He was come to the other side, into the country of the Gergesenes. Gergesenes, okay. There were 2 possessed devils coming out of the 2. They're living among the graves with the dead. There's something very morbid, and we understand instinctively, like, someone hanging around with the dead, playing around, living around corpses and stuff. There's something instinctively repulsive about that kind of behavior, right? Someone, like, you hear a story about somebody, the classic story of the, was it Ed Gein, not far from here up in Wisconsin. He was digging up people from the grave and keeping the parts in his home and making a suit of skin for himself. Making a suit out of women's skin to put it over him, and freaky, right? And when someone does something like that, you can call him mentally ill, but nobody really understands why he does things like that. Why the heck would a guy go to say, well, his mother and this and that, and his mother was very oppressive. Yeah, she was. She was definitely like the Oedipal mother, like, controlling and over his life and all that. But, not everyone who has an Oedipal mother ends up like that. They're not always so susceptible. But whatever, like meaning that the demon can get much harder hold of you, of some people than others. Just like, I was watching recently a hypnotist having like a TED talk, and it was like interesting because You know, saying like that there's something to it, that some people are able to be hypnotized, and it's really hard to understand exactly what it is. Well, they're starting to understand, or whatever. I forgot the point of it. I just thought it was fascinating. And in the little psychological memes and psychological damage that gets done through certain events that happen in the world, it is a spiritual matter, because it's not, you know, the people say, well, it's all in their brain. It's like I said about Einstein. Einstein was not born having the theory of relativity nestled in his brain somewhere. I mean, it wasn't like he was like just born and was like, oh, look it's in here. Like, then we could just take the brain of every infant and just scan it for the ideas. You know, I mean, if we learned how to read brains, we just go in and scan their minds and get all the secrets of the universe out of it. Because your brain, you know, the ideas come from your brain. They don't come from your brain. No more than the idea like, hey, I'll sew together a bunch of dead bodies and make myself a friend. That's not an idea that comes out of your brain. It's a brain idea that comes into your brain. From where? Where's the idea coming from? Where are these thoughts coming from? Where are these evil thoughts and intentions? What is speaking to you? What are you listening to? The world is full of spirits, and they're speaking all the time. And that's why there's temptation, because, you know, Jesus was tempted. That means the idea came to temptation. I mean, a temptation means a test comes out. Like you see a beautiful woman, and the idea comes into your head to look at her with lust. And maybe it's so fast you just do it. Or let's say if you're resistant to it, maybe you don't just do it, but the idea comes to you, like, for a moment. But instead you divert your eyes because you know you shouldn't just, you know, thieve on someone like that. You know, you don't want to be some leering pervert. Is that your vision of yourself, leering pervert? You don't want to be that person. So you reject that idea and the spirit that leads to leering perversion. And you reject the ideas that lead to other kinds of evils. Like, let's go live in the tombs and play with the dead bodies. Let's be morbid ghouls and feast on the flesh of the dead. You know, there's some sort of evil spirit going on there. I don't claim to understand it. But they were fierce. And no one dared go around where they were. These ghoulish, you know, what are their fear? Are they murderers? What are they doing there? I don't know. When you hear about these things, these people, they're possessed of ideas. They don't have ideas. Ideas have them. When these perverse sociopaths go about these things, there's something got a hold of them. And maybe they're more susceptible to it. I'm sure there's some sort of basis that can be understood scientifically, but that's just scratching the surface of what's really going on. That's what I was saying. It's like you're not really, when you just look at something from a scientific perspective, you're only scratching the surface, only that which we may touch. There are deeper things going on underneath the surface that science can't touch. Not that come hither to torment us before the time. They know their time is limited. I didn't even read that verse. Let's just close by reasoning. Well, we'll just pick it up with verse 28 tomorrow. We touched on it a little. That's good. Hopefully I don't know. I was thinking, like, what if I forget because I don't remember? I have like the opposite of a photographic memory. I have like a blender memory. Just throw everything in there and blah, 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 and you make a smoothie. Anyways, that concludes our study for today. Remember, you can find all kinds of studies on, well, all kinds of my studies. Anyways, one variety of study you can find on my site is, well, they're older, so they're different. It comes from a different time in my life on oraclesofgod.org. But there's hundreds of hours, and I still think there's valuable things to be learned from them. You know, I don't really believe in taking down what I've done, though. I don't know. Maybe someday I will believe in it and take it all away. So get it now while it lasts. Also subscribe to Line by Line Bible Studies with me, Paul Strangini, and I have a YouTube channel besides this one, just my regular YouTube channel. Let's see. I forgot to check the pop-out chat. No, Doctrine Enforcer. Smart Alec is gone. Sorry. Sorry, fellow. Sorry I missed your comment. Anyways, I wish there was a way to have all this stuff up at the same time, but I guess I could do it on another computer. I'm going to try to do that on another computer next time. Anyways, oh, I thought it was on the screen. Anyways, next time I'm going to try to put that on. I guess you could hear me. What am I worried about? Okay, anyways, thank you for joining me in the study. I'll look forward to studying with you again tomorrow. Same time. And let's see, let's bring up. There's no automation with this, or I haven't learned how to do it yet. Well, let's talk about the dead, since we think about dead babies.